morning, Michael Garcia, the chair of the Hispanic Vote. I have the great pleasure of having Peter Hernandez, the commissioner from the city of Hollywood here. But it's really a pleasure because Peter's one of the founding members of the Hispanic Vote 10 years ago. As I said with my previous interview, we are highlighting Hispanic elected officials and Hispanic community leaders for Hispanic Heritage Month to highlight the good work that they're doing here in the county. So I want to thank the commissioner for joining us and tell us a little bit about the foundation.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. A little bit about the foundation. There was a small group of us that felt that the Hispanics were underrepresented, and we wanted to start uniting the Hispanics. As you well know, as Hispanics, sometimes we differ between one country and another, and that kind of pits us against each other.
Exactly.
So we wanted to, cross that barrier and let everybody know that based on the fact that we are Hispanics and we're here in Broward County, which is basically, it's grateful of this country to have us here, we all should work together for a common goal.
We were just talking off camera a little bit about your background, and the real purpose of this is to highlight what you've done here in the county to benefit Hispanics in the county as a whole, but also to get to know a little bit about you and your Hispanic heritage and growing up. So please tell us about your background. I know you're Cuban American. Tell us a little bit about growing up, your parents. We were talking a little bit about the Republican Democrat type thing, so please.
I can tell you that I was born in Havana, Cuba, lived in Spain for 2.5 years. From Spain, we moved here, and 3 of my uncles lived in Broward County. One of them lived in Fort Lauderdale, the other 2 lived in Hollywood. They showed my dad and my mom as to both cities, see which one they wanted to be in.
Okay.
And my father decided that Hollywood was a better city, better fit for him, and he fell in love, and therefore we settled in Hollywood. We started a business. And
okay.
My background was, when I was 11 years old, I went to school, Apollo Middle School, without knowing any English.
Okay.
And it was cruel. I learned firsthand the divisions that there was among the Hispanics, among the African Americans, and among the whites. I didn't fit in.
Okay.
Quite frankly, I didn't fit in, but I learned to get along. My mom said to me, you have to go to school, you have to learn, and you have to get along with everybody. At the end of the day, we're all people. And so that was my attitude, and that's what I did. And in business, I've done the same thing. I try to help anyone that I can. When I don't know something, I tell people I don't know. And I try to find somebody that can, and then I refer them into that. And that's how basically my background has been. I get a kick out of a lot of people that look at me and say things in Spanish, and they look at my wife and they expect her to translate, and then I actually answer, and they look at me, you look Americano, and I look at them, I says, I grew up in this country, so I'm grateful to this country, but that doesn't mean I have forgotten my roots. Yo hablo español diariamente con mi hija, con mi esposa, con mis amistades, con mi familia.
Y nosotros hablamos español when we talk on the phone. We do this right there. We do that Spanglish. We do that Spanglish in between. When your parents left Cuba, it was because of Castro, the regime, and
Yes.
because of as you saw, I just had Angelo come and he told us a little bit about it. So, when your parents left, how many were you when you guys left?
We were, my sister and I, there was, and my parents, it was 4 of us. When we came here, we were political refugees.
Okay.
So we lived with my uncle in Hollywood for a little while. My other uncle purchased a house. My parents rented from him until we were able to purchase our own house.
Your parents, what did they do in Cuba?
My dad was a mason, so he was a plasterer by trade. So
okay.
When we came here, we started a sand and gravel construction material company, and
okay.
still stands today. And my mom worked for a pharmaceutical company.
Okay.
And so when we came here, she actually had to work in a factory in Hialeah. As a matter of fact, we traveled from here to there. And then towards the end, she actually worked for the Dow Chemical Company, and she was able to work in the field that she was trained in.
So was your experience a little bit different than other Cubans because you had your uncles here?
Yes.
Where other Cubans really didn't have anybody. They just came in.
We were very fortunate that we were sponsored.
Okay.
I'm grateful to my uncles for what they did, and and we realized that at that point we were actually privileged in comparison to some other Cubans and some other foreigners that came here.
Okay. So you've always lived in Broward County since you came here?
For a short period of time, we lived in Hialeah for a couple of months in 1977, when it actually snowed here in South Florida. We were actually in a pig farm for working for my uncle in New Jersey, and it was way too cold, and we moved back right away. It was way too cold.
How long have you been a commissioner now?
I've been a commissioner going on 8 years.
Okay. And how do you like it?
Oh, I love it. I got to tell you something. Sometimes it's very rewarding when you're able to help people, and sometimes it's very frustrating when you have you own ordinances, you own resolutions, and it makes it almost impossible for you to do so. But what you do is you walk through the process with the residents in order to come to the fruition that they're looking for. And when you do, it's very rewarding. And when you don't, you actually guide them so that we can actually make it work for the future.
What district are you in Hollywood?
I am in District 2, which is from Pembroke Road to Sheridan Street, from Federal Highway to 95, plus the Liberia section, which is north of Sheridan Street to Sterling Road.
Okay. You're currently running right now, so the election is November 3rd, right, for you guys?
Correct. November 3rd with the presidential election.
Tell us a little bit of the things that you guys are doing in the city, what you've done to help your residents in the city and the city as a whole, and in your district a little bit.
Well, one of the things that we were experiencing as a city was that we were starved for resources. We didn't have the funds to do some of the capital things that we needed to do. We were actually charging the residents for the sidewalks, a 50-50 program. If your sidewalk was broken, the city would charge you 50% on the sidewalks, and you would have to pay, and the city would pay the other 50%. Well, as of recent, that has gone away. So if there's a broken sidewalk in front of you, the city will pay for the whole sidewalk. But more importantly, we have what it's called the CRA, Community Redevelopment Agency, which is the beach and the downtown. And that was gobbling up millions and millions of dollars that the rest of the city was not getting. So it took 4.5 years, but I spearheaded a battle to try to get some of those funds for the low to moderate income areas in the city, Hollywood, so they can actually rehabilitate their houses, and for the first time home buyers, so that we would have the ability to do that. It has made a big difference for my district, but more importantly, it has made a big difference for the whole city overall. In working with Broward County, because the CRA is based on TIF, tax increment funds, that money that would have gone back to the county, they've actually, through an interlocal agreement, have given that money back to the city for it to be able to use for those purposes.
How big is your city? Hollywood's one of the biggest cities in Broward County.
Hollywood has about 156,000 people right now. It's the second largest, if not the third. We compete with Pines
and Miramar, right?
And Miramar, yeah.
Pines and Miramar. Are you guys doing a police station or something? I've heard something.
We are.
Okay.
Our police station is over 40 years old. We passed a general obligation bond where the residents of the city said they would tax themselves to improve for certain things. And one of those things was a police station.
Okay. Your district, what is it? What's the makeup in your district?
My district is pretty eclectic. It has a percentage of African American, a percentage of Hispanic, and a percentage of white and others. So the Hispanics is a little higher than the African American.
Okay.
And the whites is a little higher than the Hispanic. So white is 46 to 47%. Hispanics is in the low 30s, and then the African American population is in the high teens, low 20s.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit more about your Hispanic heritage, because we talk about Hispanic heritage. You know, I asked Angelo, what was his favorite dish? His Cuban dish or Hispanic dish? What's your favorite dish?
I like most Cubans that I know, means masita de cerdos,
Okay.
arroz, frijoles, y tostones.
Explain to the people what's masita de cerdos in English.
The pork chunks. Masita de cerdos is pork chunks. I like the green plantains smashed up with salt, and the rice and black beans.
Okay. Do you know how to do salsa?
A little bit.
You're like Angelo?
I know I'm more of merengue.
Oh, yeah.
I love merengue. My wife is Ecuadorian. My daughter is Colombian. So we dance a little bit of everything.
Okay. So growing up in a Hispanic household, how was it? What do you reflect on it? What do you remember? What do you miss when you were growing up, in a Hispanic household?
I can tell you that one of the things that I remember is waking up very early in the morning with my mom, because my mom didn't drive. So my dad had to take her there. On the way back, would drop me off to school, and then he would go to work. So we would get up on 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock hour, so we would be able to make the trip, so that he would be able to be at work by 7 a.m.
Now, you and your father eventually started a business, right?
We did. In 1978, we started it.
How old were you when you started the business?
I was 15 years old, going on 16, and I had to drop out of school so that I could help him with the business, because the business could not sustain itself. So he was still working in the construction industry, and I would be at the forefront of the business. And as time went on, the business got better. I was able to go and finish my high school, and then I was encouraged to go to college. So I went to college and took some business courses. But yeah, it was the thing about Hispanics in this country is they come to work, and when you sacrifice and you do the things that you have to do in order to move ahead, then this country is very grateful and allows you to move ahead.
What are some of the challenges? Well, let me ask you, because you've been here for a while, for a long period of time in the county. What do you see as a big difference for Hispanics from when you came to where we're at now?
It's funny you mentioned that. I remember talking and walking in the Broadwalk in Hollywood Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, when you spoke in Spanish, you kind of spoke very softly.
Calladito.
You didn't want people to know you were speaking Spanish. And today, you walk on the Broadwalk, and there are Hispanic businesses there. And they have Hispanic music, and people are dancing salsa. And people are walking, and they're speaking in Spanish, and they're speaking in different languages, and nobody has an issue when it comes to that.
There's no second look, there's no one double taking.
No. What I've loved about Broward County and Hollywood in particular, there has been some muy acogedores. They have been able to embrace multi-languages, multicultural, and therefore that's one of the things that I love about Broward County. And yes, I have been here since 1974, and I've seen a difference.
Yeah, I was born in 73, so yeah, don't.
My wife was born in 1972. So yeah, I love the city. I love the county. I think that we've come a long way.
What do you think? And this is a conversation I had with Angelo, Commissioner Castillo. What are some of the barriers that us Hispanics have here in the county that sometimes we create ourselves, or because he and I were talking and said sometimes we're not as Hispanics are not as connected or as uniformed as some other communities.
I think one of the challenges that we have as Hispanics in the county and in the country and as a whole is that Hispanics is basically a language. We speak Spanish.
Yeah.
But we come from a multitude of different countries, multitude of different cultures. And whether you're Hispanics, you have blacks, you have whites, you have Asians. So you have a multitude of races, if you would, when it comes to Hispanics as well. So my daughter is Colombian, my wife is Ecuadorian, I'm Cuban, my other sister is Dominican. We all speak Spanish, and as a family, we all get along. But once you start going through the different sectors, then you have one person saying, oh, don't get along with that guy because he's so-and-so, and don't get along with this guy because he's so-and-so. And that is where the division within our own groups starts. I think that is the reason why we have maybe less than 5% of representation in Broward County, and we have over 30% of the Hispanic population in Broward County. So I think that if, as Hispanics, we're gonna move forward, we need to be able to recognize what this says, the Hispanic vote, and we need to start unifying all of our differences and start voting as a block so that we can actually get the respect.
No, look, you're one of the founders, and I'm currently the chair, and it's something that we've been fighting in the county for a very long time, of getting that one voice of Hispanics. And look, obviously not, you don't have to disregard all your particular characteristics, but to have a unified voice will help us more in the future to raise those votes, because as you said, 5%. I think in the county we have maybe 170, 180 elected officials outside of the judges, and we have 6 elected officials in the county, which is horrible. It is horrible, because I know those numbers because of what I do, and I'm always looking at that, and I'm like, we need to have better representation at the local level here for that's going to benefit us.
I agree with you, Michael, 100%, and I think what we need to do as people, in particularly Spanish-speaking persons, is try to look at the differences that we have, get over those differences, and start looking at us for what we have in common and what it is that we need to work towards. And it's happening in the country, and it will be happening here as well. Just a matter of we need to get the youth involved and talk to the roots that we all have, and be able to look at those differences and come up with a dish, if you would, that we all can sit down and enjoy together. Because at the end of the day, if you have, we all pay taxes, we all work, but we don't have the representation that we have. When somebody comes to you and speaks to you in Spanish, to me, is something that a bond that we have together. I don't ask him where you're from or what you've been and where you're going.
Correct.
I ask him, what is it that I can help you with?
Yeah. So for all you Hispanics in Hollywood, and specifically in the Commissioner's District, you need to go out and vote this November, because we only have 6 elected officials in the county that are Hispanic. And obviously in Hollywood, there's only 1 Hispanic commissioner. So you guys need to support the commissioner, because he's been here for a while. He's done some good stuff in the city, and he will continue to do good stuff to represent the district and the city of Hollywood. So I want to end off with Commissioner, please tell them where they can go on your Facebook page, volunteering, donations, all that. You know, yeah, I'm doing that little speech for you. You know,
I appreciate that one. PeterForHollywood.com is a webpage. PeterForHollywood.com is my email. My phone number is 954-247-7136, 954-247-7136. Yo estoy aquí para servir en lo que yo pueda ayudar. Por favor, contáctenme.
Commissioner, thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
No, Michael, thank you for doing what you do. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much.